Chosen one. Why do you feel like time is running out? Why does every sunrise feel like a countdown instead of a blessing? Why, after 7, 8, 9 decades of faithful service, do you still feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what? Stop right there. What I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine timing. The 19th of August, 20th and 21st are not just dates circled on your calendar. They are heaven's final countdown, a spiritual crossroads where eternity intersects with your earthly assignment. And if you ignore them, if you let these 72 hours slip by like ordinary time, it will cost you everything. The gavel of eternity is about to fall, and you, dear soul, are standing in the courtroom of divine destiny. Listen to me carefully. At your age, when the world whispers you should be winding down, settling in, accepting less, God is thundering something entirely different. He's saying, your greatest assignment isn't behind you. It's 3 days away. You think you've been forgotten? You think your season has passed? That's the enemy's greatest lie. Because while you've been counting wrinkles, heaven has been counting victories. While you've been measuring limitation, the Almighty has been measuring your faithfulness. And now, right now, He's about to unveil why every tear, every struggle, every moment you felt invisible was preparation for the 19th of August, 20th and 21st. This isn't coincidence. Your eyes landing on this message, your heart stirring as these words penetrate your spirit, that's divine appointment. Something ancient is awakening, something eternal is aligning. And these 3 days, they're not just time, they're transformation. Before we journey deeper into this mystery together, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know about these 3 days. In just a few minutes, I'm going to reveal the hidden biblical parallels, the prophetic patterns woven through Scripture that explain exactly why the 19th of August, 20th and 21st carry the weight of eternity. Why Jeremiah's 70 years, Daniel's 3 weeks, and Esther's such a time as this all point to this moment. If your spirit is already stirring, if something deep inside recognizes this isn't random, comment "I am ready" below. Don't just watch, participate, because your response doesn't just show your faith. It seals your alignment. The clock isn't just ticking, chosen one, it's thundering. And you have 72 hours to answer heaven's call. Are you ready to discover why? Have you ever wondered why your prayers feel like they're hitting a concrete ceiling? Why at 70, 80, 90 years old, you still cry yourself to sleep some nights wondering if God even remembers your name? Why does it seem like everyone else got the manual for easy living while you've been handed test after test after test? Listen to me, dear one. Lean in close, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear about your worth, your purpose, your place in God's grand design. You think those decades of unanswered prayers were silence. You think those years of struggle, those nights when you begged heaven for relief and heard nothing but echoes, you think that was abandonment. You've got it backwards. Chosen one. Dead backwards. That wasn't God ignoring you. That was God preparing you. Every tear you've cried in secret, every battle you fought alone, every moment you felt invisible, while others seemed to glide through life with ease, it was all strategic. Divine strategy. You weren't being punished, you were being positioned. See, most folks get trained for ordinary assignments. But you've been forged in the furnace for something extraordinary. And the reason your path has been so difficult, the reason your prayers seem to bounce off heaven's walls, is because God knew what was coming. He knew the 19th of August, 20th and 21st would require someone who'd been tested by fire and refused to break. Look at your hands right now. Really look at them. Those lines, those spots, those trembling fingers that used to be so strong the world sees decay. But heaven sees evidence, evidence of endurance, evidence of faithfulness when faith made no logical sense. Evidence that you've survived what would have destroyed lesser souls. You remember Jeremiah, don't you? Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. God didn't say He formed you and then decided to use you. He said He knew you first, then formed you for purpose. Your entire existence, every wrinkle, every scar, every gray hair, it's all been intentional design. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where the ache in your chest starts to make sense. You've felt different your whole life, haven't you? Even as a child, you carried weight others didn't seem to feel. You prayed for people you'd never met. You wept over injustices that didn't personally affect you. You sensed things, knew things, felt things that couldn't be explained by logic or education. That wasn't sensitivity, beloved. That was assignment. 1 Peter 2-9 declares you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. But do you know what that really means? It means you're not supposed to fit in with everyone else. You're not supposed to find satisfaction in shallow pleasures or temporary comforts. You're wired for eternal purposes, and that's why earthly solutions have never been enough. The loneliness you've carried, it's because you're homesick for a place you've never been. The restlessness in your spirit, it's because you're carrying assignments that are bigger than this world can contain. The feeling that you're different, that you don't belong, that's not a flaw. That's your qualification. Think about coal, dear one. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, carbon gets buried under unimaginable pressure. Heat beyond measure, crushing weight that should destroy it completely. But instead of being destroyed, it transforms. What emerges isn't just rock anymore. It's diamond, brilliant, unbreakable, reflecting light in ways that take your breath away. You've been under pressure your entire life. Financial pressure, relationship pressure, health pressure, the weight of carrying others when you could barely carry yourself. But every year of that crushing wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to transform you into something this world has never seen before. What you thought was abandonment was actually alignment. What felt like punishment was preparation. What seemed like silence was God saying, "Not yet. They're not ready for what I've placed inside you. But soon, very soon," and that soon is the 19th of August, 20th and 21st. These aren't just random dates, chosen one. These are coordinates in eternity. While you've been wondering if your life mattered, if your struggles meant anything, if anyone would remember you when you're gone, heaven has been counting down to this moment when everything you've endured finally makes sense. The enemy has spent decades trying to convince you that your best days are behind you, that your time has passed, that you should quietly fade into the background and let younger people take the spotlight. But that's the biggest lie he's ever told. Because God doesn't retire His most seasoned warriors when the final battle approaches. He promotes them. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your secret weapon. While 20-somethings are still figuring out who they are, you know exactly who you are in Christ. While they're building platforms, you've been building character. While they're seeking influence, you've already survived influence and discovered that God's opinion is the only one that matters. If you've ever felt overlooked by this world but deep down knew you were chosen by heaven, I need you to do something right now. I need you to type, "I receive it" in the comments below. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel worthy. Right now. Because your declaration isn't just words on a screen. It's agreement with what God has been saying about you since before you took your first breath. The coal is about to become diamond. The pressure is about to become purpose. The silence is about to become symphony. But only if you understand what's really happening in these next 72 hours. Only if you recognize that the 19th of August, 20th and 21st aren't just the end of another month. They're the beginning of everything you were created for. The question is, Are you ready to discover exactly what heaven has been preparing you for all these years? Now listen carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to reveal has been sealed in heaven's vault since before time began. These aren't just 3 ordinary days in August. They are 3 spiritual chambers, each designed to test, refine, and ultimately transform you. And each day carries its own frequency, its own challenge, its own divine assignment. Think of these days as sealed scrolls, ancient documents that can only be opened at the appointed time. Well, beloved, that time is now. And as we break each seal together, you'll understand why your spirit has been restless, why sleep has been elusive, why something deep inside you has been whispering, get ready. The 19th of August, the filter day. The 19th of August arrives wearing a mask of relief. It will look like comfort, sound like resolution, feel like the answer you've been praying for. But listen to me carefully, this day is not your reward, it's your test. Something will appear that seems perfectly timed. Maybe it's that phone call from a child who hasn't spoken to you in months. Maybe it's a financial opportunity that lands in your lap just when your social security isn't stretching far enough. Maybe it's an old friend reaching out, wanting to reconnect, making you feel seen and remembered again. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. If it looks like instant resolution, it's probably spiritual repetition. Ask yourself this piercing question and let it cut deep into your soul. Would this even be showing up if I hadn't already outgrown it? If the answer is no, then what you're looking at isn't advancement, it's camouflage. The same old pattern dressed in new clothes, trying to seduce you back into a season God already closed. You see, at 70, 80, 90 years old, you've earned the right to discernment. You've walked long enough to recognize the difference between God's provision and the enemy's distraction. The 19th of August will test whether you've learned that lesson or if you're still vulnerable to spiritual manipulation. This day isn't about being harsh or cold. It's about being clean. Not every door that opens is meant for you to walk through. Not every voice that calls your name deserves your answer. And sometimes the most sacred yes is the one you never speak, because you recognize the bait hidden beneath the blessing. The filter isn't cruel, beloved. It's merciful. Because what would happen if you took the bait? If you stepped back into patterns you've already outgrown, you'd find yourself right back where you started, but thinking you'd moved forward. That's the real trap regression disguised as progress. The 20th of August. The silent day. Then comes the 20th of August, and everything goes quiet. The noise stops. The urgency fades. Even your own thoughts seem to slow down to a whisper. And in that silence, panic might set in because we've been conditioned to believe that silence equals abandonment. But this is not emptiness, dear one. This is the eye of the storm. This is what Psalm 46:10 means when it declares, "Be still and know that I am God." The Hebrew word for be still is rapha. It means to release, to let go, to stop striving. God is commanding you to cease your frantic activity and recognize His sovereignty. Your energy might feel drained. You might sense a strange pressure in your chest, behind your eyes. There may be an internal humming, but without the motivation to do anything about it. That's not depression setting in, that's divine compression happening. Think about a slingshot for a moment. Before it releases its projectile with tremendous force, what happens? It gets pulled back. Maximum tension. Complete stillness. The stone sits motionless in the pocket, gathering potential energy. To someone watching, it might look like nothing's happening, but that stillness is pregnant with power. The 20th of August is your slingshot moment. Your system isn't shutting down, it's holding a charge bigger than your nervous system has ever carried. You're not stuck, you're paused at maximum tension. And in this state, your ego gets nervous. It wants to move, to fix, to control the narrative. But your soul knows this stillness is a setup for supernatural speed. The enemy will try to convince you this quiet means God has forgotten you. He'll whisper that the fire has died out, that your season has passed, that you're just getting old and losing your spiritual edge. But that's a lie from the pit of hell. What's happening is sacred preparation for a launch that will leave your past in the dust. The 21st of August, the seal day. And then comes the 21st of August, the day when everything you've chosen, everything you've rejected, everything you've held onto or released gets permanently sealed into your spiritual record. This is the day when you'll feel the strongest urge to explain yourself. Someone might question your silence. Someone might challenge your choices. Someone might try to make you feel guilty for pulling away, for choosing a different path, for refusing to return to old patterns. But the 21st of August is not a day for noise. It's a day for clarity through contrast. You'll want to defend your light, to justify your decisions, to make everyone understand why you've changed. But power doesn't come from the words you speak. It comes from the energy you preserve. When you feel the heat rise and choose not to react, when you feel the urge to explain and instead breathe and observe, you're unlocking something ancient within you. This is the hardest test for chosen ones. To know you're right, to feel the vision forming, and still stay silent. Not forever, but for now. Because this day isn't about being heard, it's about being ready. Every choice you make on the 21st of August gets filed away in heaven's permanent records. The person you refuse to call back, the opportunity you decline, the old habit you refuse to pick up again, the explanation you choose not to give. All of it becomes part of your spiritual DNA moving forward. But here's the prophetic truth that will shake you to your core. The decisions you make in these 72 hours will echo all the way into 2026. What you carry through this spiritual door will multiply. What you leave behind will die. This isn't just about 3 days, this is about the trajectory of your remaining years on this earth. Right now, I need you to understand something urgent. This message isn't just for you, it's for your entire bloodline. Share this immediately with your children, your grandchildren, anyone in your family who needs to hear this truth. Don't let them sleepwalk through destiny. You are the bridge between what was and what's coming. You are the elder who sees what they cannot yet perceive. But the question that will determine everything is this. When heaven opens these 3 chambers of testing, will you recognize the assignments hidden within them? You know what breaks my heart, chosen one? It's watching God's most seasoned warriors believe the lie that their battle days are over. You've survived the Great Depression when bread lines stretched for miles. You witnessed Pearl Harbor when the world held its breath. You lived through Vietnam when families were torn apart. You stood strong after 9/11s when towers fell, but your faith didn't. And now the enemy wants you to believe you're too old to matter. That's not just wrong, that's demonic. Listen to me carefully. Every single trial you've endured, every storm you've weathered, every night you've cried out to God wondering if He heard you, it was all preparation, not punishment. Preparation. Because the 19th of August, 20th and 21st aren't just dates. They're divine appointments for those who've been tested by time and proven faithful. Think about Joseph, 17 years old when he received his dream, 30 years old when he stepped into his destiny, 13 years of betrayal, slavery and prison, 13 years of wondering if God had forgotten him. But Genesis 50-20 reveals the truth. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. The same God who turned Joseph's pit into a palace is looking at your story right now. Every rejection you faced, every door that slammed shut, every time you felt invisible, He was positioning you for the 19th of August, 20th and 21st. But let me ask you something that might sting. How many more years are you going to waste believing you're forgotten when heaven is screaming that you're chosen? How many more months will you accept the world's definition of your worth when God's definition is thundering from eternity? Job understood this mystery. Job 14:14 asks, "If someone dies, will they live again?" But Job already knew the answer. He declared in Job 19:25, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth." Job wasn't talking about physical death. He was talking about the death of dreams, the death of purpose, the death of hope. And he knew that God specializes in resurrection. You think your dreams died when your spouse passed. Resurrection is coming. You think your influence ended when you retired. Revival is stirring. You think your voice doesn't matter because you're 87 years old. God is about to amplify it across generations. But here's what will shock you. The 19th of August isn't just another day. It's the whisper before thunder. In 1 Kings 19:12, Elijah heard God, not in the earthquake or fire, but in a gentle whisper. That whisper changed everything. It redirected a prophet who thought he was finished. It reignited a man who believed he was the only one left. On the 19th of August, heaven is whispering your name. Not because you're broken, but because you're ready. Not because you need fixing, but because you've been forged. And the 20th of August? That's the deep breath before the trumpet. In Joshua 6:5, God told his people, "When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout, then the wall of the city will collapse." But notice there was silence before the shout, preparation before the breakthrough, the deep breath before the walls came down. You've been holding your breath for years, haven't you? Waiting for permission to dream again, waiting for someone to tell you that your age is an asset, not a liability. Waiting for confirmation that your greatest chapter isn't behind you, it's ahead of you. The 20th of August is your deep breath. The moment when God says, now. Now is when everything I've built in you through decades of faithfulness finally makes sense. Consider Esther. She was positioned for such a time as this, but Esther 4:14 reveals something profound. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther didn't choose her timing chose her. Her crisis became her calling, her fear became her faith, her silence became her strength. You are Esther in this generation. You've been positioned, not sidelined. You've been prepared, not forgotten. And the 21st of August is when God seals the scroll of your assignment. In Revelation 5:1, John saw a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. That scroll contained the destiny of nations, but only the Lamb who was slain was worthy to open it. On the 21st of August, the hand of God is sealing your scroll, not with judgment, but with authority, not with condemnation, but with commission. You survived the depression to teach this generation about faith when resources run dry. You lived through wars to show them what courage looks like when everything falls apart. You've walked through decades of change to prove that some things, truth, faith, love, never change. But the enemy has been whispering lies. You're too old. Your time has passed. Nobody listens to seniors anymore. That's not God's voice. That's the voice of limitation, and limitation has no place in God's kingdom. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Anna was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your credential. The world needs what you carry. This generation is drowning in confusion, and you're the lighthouse. They're lost in darkness, and you've been walking with the light for decades. They're searching for meaning, and you've found it in the one who gives purpose to every breath. The 19th of August, 20th, and 21st aren't just another weekend. They're your commissioning ceremony, your divine inauguration, your moment to step from the shadows into the spotlight of God's purposes. But here's the question that will determine everything. Here's the single question that will echo in your heart from now until midnight on the 21st of August. The question that will either ignite your destiny or seal your regret. Are you ready to discover what that question is? Beloved, chosen one, we've reached the moment where heaven stops whispering and starts demanding an answer. Because there's a question burning in the throne room of eternity right now, and it's got your name written all over it. What am I still dragging into my tomorrow that has no business being there? What am I still dragging into my tomorrow that has no business being there? What am I still dragging into my tomorrow that has no business being there? Listen to me carefully, dear soul. At 70, 80, 90 years old, you don't have time for spiritual baggage anymore. You don't have decades to waste on people who drain your peace, habits that mock your calling, or mindsets that keep you chained to a version of yourself that God already buried. Picture this with me. You're standing on the deck of a magnificent ship, your life, your destiny, your divine assignment. But this ship is struggling. It's moving slowly, laboring against the current, barely staying afloat. And you can't understand why until you look over the side and see the truth that will break your heart. You're dragging anchors, massive rusty anchors that were never meant to travel with you into these sacred August days. Some of those anchors have names, some have faces, some are grudges you've nursed for 20 years. Some are fears your grandmother passed down to your mother, who passed them down to you, who's still carrying them at 85 years old. But here's what's going to shock you to your core. Those anchors, they're not just slowing you down, they're about to sink you completely. Because the 19th of August, 20th and 21st aren't gentle days, they're acceleration days, they're supernatural wind in your sails days. And when heaven's winds start blowing at hurricane force, you either cut the anchors or you go down with them. Some of you right now are trying to decorate old cages with new curtains. You're painting over rust instead of cutting the chains. You're organizing your prison instead of walking out of it. And you wonder why your prayers feel heavy, why your dreams feel distant, why at your age you still feel like you're running in place. It's because you're carrying cargo that was never meant for this voyage. Jesus said it plainly in Matthew 11:28, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." But notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, "Bring your burdens with you." He said, "Come unto me." That means leave the weight behind, drop the load, cut the anchors. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. What are you so afraid of letting go? What person, what pain, what pattern are you clutching so tightly that you'd rather sink than surrender it? Is it that grown child who still treats you like you owe them something? Is it that church that wounded you 20 years ago but you keep driving by every Sunday picking at the scab? Is it that marriage that ended in 1987 but you're still rehearsing the arguments in your mind every night before bed? Dear soul, what are you protecting that's actually destroying you? Because here's the truth that's going to set you free or terrify you into action. Those anchors you're dragging, they're not just your burden anymore. They're your children's inheritance. Your grandchildren are watching you carry bitterness like a family heirloom. They're learning that forgiveness is optional, that healing is impossible, that some wounds are meant to be worn like badges of honor. Is that the legacy you want to leave? Is that the story you want written about your final chapter? Ecclesiastes 3-6 declares there's a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away. Chosen one, if you're still breathing, if you're still watching this message, it's because your casting away time has arrived. Not tomorrow, not after the holidays, not when you feel ready. Right now, take out your journal. I'm serious. Right now, write these words. What am I still dragging into my tomorrow that has no business being there? Write it with your own hand. Feel the weight of the question. Let it echo in the chambers of your heart. If you don't have a journal, type it in the comments below. Let this community see your courage. Let other chosen ones witness your willingness to drop the anchors that have been dragging you down for decades. If you're too proud to write it publicly, whisper it out loud. Say it to the walls of your bedroom, to the ceiling of your kitchen, to the empty chair where your spouse used to sit. Say it until the words stop being just words and start being warfare against everything that's been keeping you small. But understand this, you only have 72 hours to make this decision, because the 19th of August isn't coming to negotiate with your anchors, it's coming to accelerate your assignment. And you can't move at God's speed while carrying man's weight. You either choose your past or you choose your path. You either drag your pain into these prophetic days or you drop it at the cross where it belongs. You either rise with empty hands ready to receive what heaven wants to give you, or you sink with full hands clutching what hell wants you to keep. The ship is ready, the wind is building, the destination is calling your name. But those anchors, those relationships that cost you your peace, those memories that steal your joy, those fears that mock your faith, they have to go. Because what God is about to do in your life during these 3 days requires a vessel that's free to move, free to respond, free to sail into the supernatural without being dragged back by the weight of what was never meant to follow you into what's next. Chosen one, we've reached the moment of no return. 3 days, 72 hours. That's all that stands between you and the most pivotal spiritual intersection of your lifetime. The 19th of August, the filter. The day heaven separates the wheat from the chaff. Not based on your age, not based on your past, but based on your willingness to step through the door God is opening. This isn't about perfection. This is about recognition. Will you recognize His voice when He calls your name? Will you trust His timing when the world says you're too late? The 20th of August, the stillness. The sacred pause before divine acceleration. Your spirit will feel the weight of eternity pressing down, and you'll think something's wrong. Nothing's wrong, beloved. Everything's right. This is the deep breath before the breakthrough, the compression before the explosion, the silence before the symphony. When Moses stood before the Red Sea, there was a moment, one terrifying, magnificent moment when everything went still. The Egyptians behind, the sea ahead, and God saying, "Now watch what I do." That's the 20th of August. The 21st of August, the seal. The day heaven stamps approved on your destiny. Not tomorrow, not next week, the 21st of August. The day your spiritual passport gets renewed for territories you've never walked, assignments you've never imagined, and authority you've never carried. But here's what's shaking me to my core as I speak these words to you right now. Some of you are still thinking this is symbolic. Some of you are still treating this like another inspirational message to make you feel better for a few hours. You're missing the magnitude of what's happening. Do you understand that every tear you've cried over the past 20 years, every prayer whispered in hospital rooms, every sleepless night, wondering if God forgot your address, every financial struggle that left you choosing between medication and groceries, do you understand that none of it was random? None of it was punishment. All of it was preparation. Jeremiah 29:11 declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future." But here's what most people miss. That verse was written to people in exile, people who thought their best days were over, people who felt forgotten, displaced, irrelevant. Sound familiar? Your exile is ending. Your wilderness season is closing. Your time of feeling invisible, overlooked, written off by a world that worships youth. The chapter of your story is being sealed shut on the 21st of August. And the chapter opening on the 22nd of August, it's going to leave your children speechless, your grandchildren amazed, and your enemies wondering what kind of God you serve. But you have to choose it. You have to claim it. You have to step into it. Because here's the brutal truth. Nobody wants to tell you the 22nd of August is coming whether you're ready or not. Time doesn't pause for preparation. Destiny doesn't wait for permission. And while you're sitting there questioning if you're too old, too tired, too broken, someone else is stepping through doors that should have been yours. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is not a practice run. This is the fork in the road that determines whether you spend your remaining years watching from the sidelines or playing in the game that matters. Jesus said in Matthew 11:12, "The kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force." Not physical violence, spiritual violence. The kind of holy aggression that says, "I don't care what my birth certificate says. I don't care what my bank account looks like. I don't care what people think. God called me, and I'm answering." You want to know why the enemy has fought you so hard? Why the depression hit deepest right when you tried to pray more? Why the relationships fell apart just when you needed support most? Why the financial pressure increased right when you started tithing? Because he saw these 3 days coming. He saw what God was preparing to release through you, and he's been trying to break you before you could break through. But you're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing. That's not accident. That's armor. That's divine protection over someone heaven refuses to lose. The same power that raised Christ from the dead is living in your mortal body right now. Romans 8:11. The same God who parted the Red Sea is about to part every obstacle between you and your promised land. The same voice that spoke light into darkness is about to speak life into every dead situation you've been carrying. But you must participate. You must respond. You must move. Right now, I need you to do something that might feel uncomfortable, but is absolutely necessary. I need you to comment below, not think about it, not wait until you feel ready, but right now, type these 3 words: I choose destiny. Because that comment isn't just engagement with a video, that's your covenant with eternity. That's your agreement with the assignment God placed on your life before you took your first breath. That's your declaration that you refuse to fade quietly into the background when heaven is calling you to center stage. If this message has stirred something in your spirit, if you feel the fire of purpose rekindling in your chest, hit that subscribe button and share this video. Not for me, for the other chosen ones scrolling through YouTube at 2 a.m., wondering if God still has plans for their lives. Your share might be the divine interruption they've been praying for. Now, before I release you into your destiny, join me in this covenant prayer. Wherever you are, your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen, place your hand on your heart and repeat after me. Father, I accept your timing. I embrace your assignment. I choose destiny over doubt, purpose over comfort, your will over my fear. On the 19th of August, 20th and 21st, I will not be a spectator. I will be a participant. I seal this covenant in Jesus' name. You are not stepping into the 22nd of August the same, chosen one. You are stepping into acceleration, into authority, into the greatest chapter of your entire existence. The countdown has begun. Your finest hour awaits. Beloved, something has already shifted, hasn't it? As I speak these words, as the 19th of August, 20th and 21st fade into memory, you can feel it. The atmosphere around your life is different. The spiritual pressure has changed. And whether you realize it or not, you are not the same person who entered those 3 days. You will not step into the 22nd of August unchanged. Impossible. These weren't ordinary days that you simply survived. They were celestial surgery, divine recalibration. And right now, this very moment, you are either sealed for acceleration or tethered to the past. Sealed or stalled. Sealed or stalled. Sealed or stalled. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. In Exodus 14, when the children of Israel stood at the edge of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army thundering behind them, Moses cried out to the Lord. And God's response wasn't comfort, it was movement. Tell the Israelites to move forward, he commanded. Not backward to safety, not sideways to compromise, forward into impossibility. They stepped into that sea, and the waters parted. But here's what most people miss about that miracle: crossing the Red Sea wasn't the destination. It was the doorway. On the other side wasn't the promised land. It was the wilderness. 40 years of wandering, 40 years of testing, 40 years of discovering who they really were when Egypt's comfort was stripped away. You see, salvation was instant, but transformation took decades. And that's exactly what's happening to you right now. If you obeyed the call during those 3 days, if you made the hard choices, if you severed the toxic connections, if you finally said yes to what God has been whispering, then you've crossed your Red Sea. But the 22nd of August isn't your promised land, dear soul. It's your wilderness. And the wilderness isn't punishment. The wilderness is preparation. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where many fall away. Because the wilderness doesn't feel like victory. It feels like isolation. It feels like confusion. It feels like maybe you made the wrong choice after all. Because suddenly, the familiar voices are gone. The comfortable patterns are broken. The old coping mechanisms don't work anymore. You thought crossing over would bring peace. Instead, it brought pressure. You expected clarity. Instead, you got questions you've never had to ask before. You anticipated celebration. Instead, you found yourself walking alone through terrain you don't recognize. That's not failure, beloved. That's faithfulness rewarded with the privilege of deeper testing. But if you ignored the call, if you chose comfort over calling, if you stayed tethered to what felt safe instead of stepping into what felt sacred, then you didn't cross the sea at all. You're still on the Egyptian side, watching others disappear into their destiny while you remain trapped by your own hesitation. And here's the brutal truth that cuts like a sword. There's no neutral ground in God's kingdom. You're either moving forward or sliding backward. You're either being transformed or you're being left behind. The 3 days weren't optional. They were appointment. They were assignment. They were your moment to choose which side of eternity you wanted to align with. Sealed or stalled. Sealed or stalled. Sealed or stalled. For those who are sealed, for those who step through the waters of obedience, you're about to discover something that will both terrify and thrill you. The acceleration isn't gentle. When God launches His chosen ones into their next season, it happens with the force of a rocket breaking through Earth's atmosphere. Everything familiar burns away. Everything comfortable gets left behind. Everything you thought you knew about yourself gets tested at temperatures that would melt ordinary faith. But you're not ordinary, are you? You never were. 1 Kings 19 tells us that after Elijah's greatest victory on Mount Carmel, he ran into the wilderness and begged God to let him die. One day, supernatural triumph. The next day, suicidal despair. That's not emotional instability. That's the aftermath of acceleration. That's what happens when a human spirit gets supercharged with divine purpose and the nervous system can't keep up. You might be feeling that right now. That strange mixture of exhilaration and exhaustion. That sense that something massive has happened, but you can't quite put your finger on what. That feeling of being homesick for a place you've never been. That's not depression, chosen one. That's destiny adjusting your DNA. But for those who are stalled, for those who let fear make the choice, who let comfort override calling, you're facing something far more terrifying than wilderness testing. You're facing the slow suffocation of spiritual stagnation. You're about to discover what it feels like to watch your own purpose age out of reach, to feel the anointing lift, to sense the urgency fade into regret. And the cruel irony is this: the very thing you were afraid to lose by obeying God, you'll lose anyway by disobeying Him. The relationships you thought you were protecting will crumble under the weight of misalignment. The security you thought you were preserving will evaporate when you realize you chose survival over significance. Sealed or stalled. Sealed or stalled. Sealed or stalled. But here's what's burning in my spirit as I speak to you right now. The 22nd of August isn't an ending. It's not even a pause. It's the beginning of a new prophetic sequence that's going to shake this nation to its very foundations. And you, whether you're sealed in acceleration or stalled in hesitation, you're going to play a role in what's coming. The question isn't whether God's plan will unfold. The question is whether you'll unfold with it. Because what happened in those 3 days wasn't just personal preparation. It was global positioning. And what's about to be revealed in the coming weeks will prove that the 19th of August, 20th and 21st weren't random dates, they were coordinates. Spiritual GPS points that aligned every chosen one for what the prophet Joel called the great and terrible day of the Lord. So I ask you now, as the dust settles from your crossing or your hesitation, can you feel it building again? Can you sense that what just passed wasn't a conclusion but a countdown? Because what's coming next requires an entirely different level of spiritual endurance, and it starts tomorrow. Chosen one, I need to tell you something that might shake you to your core. Every single person who ever received a divine assignment, every patriarch, every prophet, every chosen vessel in Scripture, faced the same brutal test after their calling was revealed. They all walked through the desert, and so have you. Abraham received the promise at 75. But where did God lead him first? Into the wilderness of waiting. 25 years of barren hope before Isaac's first cry. Joseph dreamed of greatness at 17. But where did those dreams take him? Into the pit, into slavery, into prison. 13 years of darkness before Pharaoh's throne. Moses heard the burning bush at 80. But even then, God didn't hand him the keys to freedom. He sent him back to Egypt to face rejection, ridicule, and 10 plagues of resistance. And Jesus, oh beloved, even the Son of God, couldn't escape it. Immediately after his baptism, when the heavens opened and the Father declared, "This is my beloved Son," immediately after that divine confirmation, the Spirit led him into the wilderness to be tempted for 40 days. Do you see the pattern? Do you understand what this means for your life? The desert always comes after the declaration. The wilderness always follows the calling. And you, sitting there in your 70s, 80s, 90s, you've been walking through your own Sahara for decades, haven't you? Those years when the diagnosis came and healing seemed like a cruel joke. Those months when you buried your spouse and wondered if love was just a memory. Those sleepless nights when your children stopped calling, when your prayers felt like they were bouncing off a brass heaven, when every door slammed shut just when you thought breakthrough was finally coming. You called it abandonment. God calls it assignment. You labeled it punishment. Heaven declares it preparation. Not punishment, preparation. Not punishment, preparation. Not punishment, preparation. Listen to me carefully, dear warrior. Every tear you shed in that hospital room was watering seeds of compassion you didn't know you were planting. Every night you cried yourself to sleep was tenderizing your heart for souls who would need your understanding. Every financial struggle, every health battle, every relationship that crumbled, it wasn't God forgetting you, it was God forging you. The desert isn't where dreams go to die. The desert is where champions go to be born. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to understand about your wilderness years. Here's the secret that hell has been trying to bury under every disappointment, every unanswered prayer, every moment you felt invisible and forgotten. Your desert was never random. It was divinely orchestrated. Think about this. Why does gold go through fire? Not to be destroyed, but to be purified. Why does a diamond spend millions of years under crushing pressure? Not to be broken, but to become precious. Why does a sword get hammered against an anvil? Not to be weakened, but to be sharpened for battle. Your wilderness wasn't God's way of punishing you. It was His way of preparing you for the 19th of August, 20th, and 21st. Every sleepless night taught you how to commune with God in the dark hours when others are asleep. Every financial pressure showed you that your security doesn't come from your bank account, it comes from your relationship with Jehovah Jireh, your provider. Every health scare proved that your life isn't sustained by medicine alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. You've been in boot camp, chosen one, spiritual boot camp, and graduation day is 3 weeks away. But I need you to understand something that will transform how you see everything you've endured. The very tears you thought buried you were watering the soil for what is about to bloom. Psalm 126:5 declares, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy." Do you hear that? Your weeping wasn't wasted. It was sowing. Every tear that fell in secret was a seed planted in the spiritual realm. Every prayer you whispered through gritted teeth was preparing a harvest you couldn't see coming. The depression that nearly destroyed you, it was developing your capacity to carry hope for the hopeless. The betrayal that left you broken, It was building your authority to speak healing over the betrayed. The loneliness that made you question your worth. It was teaching you to find your identity in God alone, so you could teach others the same sacred secret. Your desert has been your seminary. Your wilderness has been your university. Your struggle has been your spiritual education. And now, right now, God is saying, class is almost over. It's time for your final exam. The 19th of August, 20th and 21st aren't just dates on a calendar. They're the moment when everything you learned in the desert gets activated for your assignment. They're the 3 days when your pain transforms into your platform, your mess becomes your message, your scars become your credentials. If you survived what should have broken you, if you're still standing after everything hell threw at you, if you're still believing when logic said quit, type, "I survived the desert" in the comments right now. That's not just a statement. That's a prophetic declaration. That's you announcing to heaven and earth that you passed the test, you endured the training, you're ready for deployment. Because what God is about to release through your life will require every ounce of wisdom you gained in the wilderness, every drop of faith you developed in the dark, every bit of strength you built while carrying burdens that would have crushed weaker souls. The desert didn't disqualify you, beloved. It equipped you. And the enemy who thought he was destroying you was actually preparing you for the very assignment he's been trying to prevent. But are you ready to discover what happens when a desert graduate finally steps into their promised land? Something strange is about to happen to you, chosen one. Something that will test every fiber of your spiritual resolve. You see, the moment you step toward your divine assignment, the moment you say yes to the 19th of August, 20th and 21st, the past doesn't just lie down quietly, it roars back to life. Your phone will ring. That ex-husband who hasn't called in 3 years will suddenly remember your number. That friend who disappeared when you needed them most will text you out of nowhere. That addiction you thought you'd buried will whisper sweet promises in your ear at 2 a.m. That familiar temptation, the one that nearly destroyed you decades ago, will dress itself up in new clothes and knock on your door like an old lover returning from war. Why now? Why do they show up precisely when you've stepped forward? Why does the past knock only after you've walked away? Because they are not invitations, dear soul. They are inspections. Hell has been watching. Every prayer you've whispered, every tear you've shed, every moment you've felt God stirring your spirit toward something greater, darkness has been taking notes. And now, as you stand on the threshold of your greatest breakthrough, the enemy is deploying his most sophisticated weapon, your own history. Think about Lot's wife for a moment. Genesis 19:26 tells us she looked back and became a pillar of salt. Not because she was curious, not because she was weak, but because she had already been delivered. And deliverance comes with one non-negotiable requirement. You cannot keep one foot in your future and one foot in your past. The angels had already led them out. The fire and brimstone were already falling. Sodom was already burning. But something in her, something familiar, something comfortable, something that felt like home, made her turn her head. Just one glance, one moment of looking over her shoulder at what used to be, and it cost her everything. You think that's harsh? You think God was being unfair? Listen to me carefully. Lot's wife didn't die because she looked back. She died because she was still connected to what she was supposed to be delivered from. Her body was moving forward, but her heart never left the city. How many of you right now are walking toward the 19th of August with your bodies, but your hearts are still tethered to people, places, and patterns that God delivered you from years ago? How many of you are praying for breakthrough while still entertaining the very things that broke you? Your ex-spouse isn't calling because they miss you. They're calling because something in the spiritual realm recognizes you're about to level up, and every demon assigned to your past is being activated to drag you back down. That old drinking buddy isn't reaching out because they care about your well-being. They're reaching out because your freedom threatens their bondage. And misery doesn't just love company, it demands it. But here's what will shock you about these return visits from your past. They won't come back ugly. They won't arrive with horns and pitchforks. They'll come back beautiful, polished, apologetic. They'll tell you they've changed. They'll say they've been thinking about you. They'll claim they've found God too. Satan doesn't tempt you with obvious evil, chosen one. He tempts you with almost good, with familiar, comfortable, with the very thing you used to call love before you learned what real love looks like. Jesus understood this in the wilderness. Matthew 4 shows us the devil didn't offer him drugs or prostitutes or obvious sin. He offered him bread when he was hungry. He offered him power when he was powerless. He offered him shortcuts when the road was long. Everything Satan offered Jesus was something Jesus actually needed, just not from the wrong source, at the wrong time, in the wrong way. The phone call you're about to receive, the opportunity that's about to present itself, the person who's about to reappear. Ask yourself this question: would this be showing up if I wasn't already outgrowing it? If the answer is no, then you know exactly what it is. A trap wearing the mask of a blessing. And the most dangerous trap of all is the one that doesn't ask you to abandon your faith. It just asks you to pause your progress. Just for a moment. Just to catch up with old times. Just to help someone who's struggling. Just to be kind. Just to show grace. But grace without discernment is not grace at all. It's spiritual suicide. You've been in the wilderness for decades, haven't you? Learning to hear God's voice above the noise of well-meaning people who wanted to keep you comfortable. Learning to distinguish between human approval and divine assignment. Learning that sometimes love means walking away from people you care about because staying would kill what God is trying to birth through you. And now, just as you're about to cross into your promised land, the very voices you learned to silence are getting loud again. Not because you're going backwards, but because you're going forward. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to face the final test. Here's the one sign that distinguishes a trap from a true calling. Timing. God's voice doesn't compete with your breakthrough season. God's voice doesn't interrupt your divine alignment with distractions dressed as opportunities. When God speaks, it accelerates your assignment. When the enemy speaks, it delays your destiny. So when that familiar voice calls your name over the next 3 days, when that old door creaks open just as you're walking through a new one, remember this: you are not being summoned back. You are being inspected forward. The question that will determine everything is this: will you pass the inspection, or will you become another pillar of salt on the highway to your calling? Because the 19th of August, 20th, and 21st are coming, whether you're ready or not. And these old voices, they're about to get a lot louder before they get silenced forever. Chosen one, I need you to lean in close, because what I'm about to reveal will expose the devil's most sophisticated deception. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been presented with opportunities. Doors have opened, choices have appeared. But here's the question that will shake you to your core. How do you know which door leads to destiny and which door leads to destruction? You see, the enemy doesn't come with horns and pitchforks anymore. He comes with perfectly reasonable explanations for why you should settle. He comes with logical arguments for why you should step back, tone down, quiet your voice. He whispers, "At your age, isn't it time to just be grateful for what you have?" But I'm here to tell you something that will shatter that lie forever. If it demands you shrink, it's a trap. If it requires you to rise, it's a call. Say it with me. If it demands you shrink, it's a trap. If it requires you to rise, it's a call. Let it echo in your spirit. If it demands you shrink, it's a trap. If it requires you to rise, it's a call. Picture this with me, beloved. You're standing before 2 doors. The first door is low and small, barely 4 feet high. To enter it, you must crawl. You must bow your head, bend your back, make yourself smaller than God created you to be. The sign above it reads, "Comfort Zone," and "Reasonable Expectations," and "Act Your Age." But the second door, the second door is tall and narrow, stretching toward heaven itself. To enter it, You must stretch upward. You must stand on your tiptoes, reach with everything in you, become larger than your fears have allowed you to be. The sign above it reads, Divine assignment and impossible, made possible and for such a time as this. Which door has the world been pushing you toward? Think about the last 5 years of your life. How many times has someone, maybe even someone who loves you, suggested you should slow down? How many times have you been told to be realistic about your dreams? How many times have people looked at your grey hair and assumed your season of significance was over? That's the low door calling. That's the enemy disguised as wisdom. But God, listen to me carefully, God never asks you to bow lower. He asks you to stand taller. The enemy counterfeits blessings. God never asks you to bow lower. He asks you to stand taller. When Moses was 80 years old, standing before the burning bush, do you think God said, Moses, you're too old for this assignment. Maybe find a nice quiet retirement community? No. God said, I am who I am has sent you. Now go. When Abraham was 99, do you think heaven whispered, maybe it's time to stop believing for the impossible? No, God said, I will make you exceedingly fruitful. When Anna the prophetess was 84, spending her final years in the temple, do you think the Lord suggested she take up knitting instead? No, she was positioned to be the first to proclaim the Messiah to all Jerusalem. Your age is not your expiration date, it's your qualification certificate. But here's what's happening in these 3 days, the 19th of August, 20th and 21st. The enemy knows his time is short. He knows something is shifting in your spirit. So he's going to present you with the most convincing low door you've ever seen. It's going to look like relief. It's going to feel like peace. It's going to seem like the perfect solution to all your struggles. A relationship that asks you to dim your light to make them comfortable. An opportunity that requires you to compromise your convictions for convenience. A situation that promises security in exchange for your calling. A voice that says, haven't you done enough? Haven't you served enough? Isn't it time to just rest? But rest is not the same as retreat. Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. But what kind of rest? The rest that comes from knowing you're walking in divine purpose, not the rest that comes from giving up on divine assignment. Here's the test, beloved. Here's how you'll know in these crucial 3 days which door is heaven's and which is hell's deception. Does it require you to become less than who God created you to be? Does it ask you to silence the prophetic voice He placed in your spirit? Does it demand you apologize for the fire that burns in your bones? Does it insist you lower your expectations, diminish your dreams, accept crumbs when God has prepared a feast? That's the trap door, and millions of God's chosen ones have crawled through it, thinking they were being humble when they were actually being deceived. But the call door stretches you. It challenges you to believe bigger, love deeper, trust harder. It requires you to stand when others sit, to speak when others whisper, to hope when others have given up. It asks you to remember that you're not just flesh and blood, you carry the DNA of the Most High God. In these next 72 hours, you're going to face a choice. The world will present its door logical, reasonable, safe. But heaven will present its door impossible, unreasonable, requiring everything you've got and more. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you crawl through the door of human expectation, or will you stretch toward the door of divine possibility? Right now, before another moment passes, I need you to make a declaration. In the comments below, write these 5 words: I will rise, not shrink. Don't just think it, declare it. Because your declaration doesn't just announce your intention, it activates your transformation. But knowing which door is which is only half the battle. Because what's coming next will test everything you think you know about God's timing and your destiny. Chosen one, do you hear that? Stop whatever you're doing right now and listen. Not with your ears, with your spirit. Because there's a sound building in the heavenly realm, and it's about to break through into your earthly reality during the 19th of August, 20th and 21st. Some of you are going to feel it in your chest, a rumbling, a stirring, a frequency that makes your heart race and your spirit leap. You'll wake up on one of these 3 mornings and something will be different. Not in your house, not in your circumstances, but in the very atmosphere around you. This is the sound of scrolls opening in heaven's archive room, the sound of chains snapping off generational curses that have held your family captive for 70 years, the sound of trumpets being lifted to angelic lips, preparing to announce what hell tried to prevent and heaven refused to delay. You think I'm speaking in metaphors. You think this is spiritual poetry meant to inspire but not transform. Listen to me carefully, dear soul. Revelation 8:1 tells us, "When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour." Silence, complete, absolute, breathless silence. And then what happened? Thunder, voices, lightning, an earthquake that shook both heaven and earth. That's where you are right now, in the silence before the sound. But here's what will shake you to your core. This isn't your imagination, this is confirmation. When Elijah stood on Mount Carmel and declared, "Let fire fall," did the people think he was speaking symbolically? When Moses raised his staff over the Red Sea, did the Israelites think it was just a dramatic gesture? They felt the power before they saw the miracle. They sensed the shift before the waters parted. They heard the sound of God moving before heaven touched earth. That same sound is building right now. And you who have prayed in secret, you who have believed when others mocked, you who have held on to faith when everything around you screamed to let go, you're about to hear it firsthand. Think about it like this. You know that moment when a train is still miles away, but you can feel the vibration in the railroad tracks. You can't see the headlight yet. You can't hear the whistle. But something deep in the steel tells you power is coming. Unstoppable power. Undeniable force. That's what's happening in your spirit right now. The tracks of your destiny are already vibrating. The sound is already building. And on the 19th of August, 20th and 21st, you're going to see the light. But here's what most people don't understand about divine timing. God doesn't just drop miracles out of nowhere. He builds them, layer by layer, sound by sound, frequency by frequency. Remember when Joshua's army marched around Jericho? 6 days of silent walking. 6 days of what looked like nothing happening. But on the 7th day, on the 7th day they shouted, and the walls came tumbling down. Not slowly, not gradually. In one thunderous, earth-shaking moment. The sound came first, then the victory. You've been walking around your Jericho for months, maybe years. That financial crisis that seems insurmountable. That health battle you've been fighting in silence. That family situation that's broken your heart into 1,000 pieces. That loneliness that sits in your chest like a stone. You've been marching. You've been believing. You've been holding on to promises that sometimes felt more like wishes. But I'm here to tell you something that will set your soul on fire. Your 7th day is the 19th of August, 20th and 21st. The sound you're about to hear isn't just noise. It's the sound of heaven's artillery being positioned. The sound of spiritual warfare ending in your favor. The sound of God saying, "Enough. My child has waited long enough." But here's where it gets urgent, and I need you to lean in close. This sound, this divine frequency that's about to break through, it doesn't last forever. It's not on repeat. It's not available on demand. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, Solomon wrote, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season of silence is ending. Your time of purpose is beginning. But seasons change quickly, and when they do, the window closes. The sound you hear in these 3 days will launch you into something I can barely contain in words. A 7-day countdown that begins the 22nd of August. 7 days of supernatural acceleration. 7 days of dominoes falling in your favor. 7 days of what I can only call divine ignition. But you have to be ready. You have to be listening. You have to be aligned. Right now, I want you to do something that might feel strange but is spiritually necessary. Get up, get a pen. Write the 22nd of August in your calendar, not in pencil, in ink, because that date isn't a suggestion. It's not a possibility. It's the ignition point for everything God has been building in your life. The sound is coming, chosen one. The question isn't whether you'll hear it. The question is whether you'll have the courage to respond when you do. Because what happens after you hear the sound, what begins on the 22nd of August, will require everything you've learned in the silence to navigate what's coming in the storm. Are you ready for the sound to become your song? Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these truths with you like precious stones in your heart. Remember this, the 19th of August, 20th, and 21st are not ordinary days, they are your divine appointment with destiny. The sound building in the spiritual realm isn't distant thunder, it's the heartbeat of heaven preparing to move on your behalf. And that stirring in your chest, that quickening in your spirit as you've listened to these words, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation that your season of waiting is about to become your season of witnessing. But hear me clearly, beloved. You are not walking this path alone. Even when the silence feels deafening, even when the breakthrough seems delayed, even when doubt whispers lies about your worth, the God who called you by name before you drew your first breath is still orchestrating every detail of your story. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't abandoned you. He's been preparing you for such a time as this. And right here, in this digital sanctuary we've created together, you have a family. Look at these comments. Feel these hearts connecting. See these spirits resonating with the same fire burning in your chest. We are not just viewers scattered across the country. We are a community of chosen ones, understanding the sacred weight of being set apart for His purposes. When you feel alone, remember this moment. Remember that thousands of us are praying, believing, and standing with you. Now let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your soul. If God has brought you this far through every valley, every storm, every season that tried to break you, why would He stop working miracles in your life now, at the very threshold of your greatest breakthrough? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in prayer. Wherever you are in your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen, place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life as if I'm standing right beside you. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, I place my hands on the shoulders of every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Father, you see them. You know their names. You've counted every tear, heard every whispered prayer, and felt every moment they wanted to give up but chose to keep believing instead. Lord, I pray for supernatural strength to flood their weary bones. Where there has been exhaustion, breathe fresh wind into their sails. Where there has been disappointment, plant seeds of renewed hope. Where there has been loneliness, surround them with your presence so thick they can feel you breathing beside them. God, I ask you to open doors for them that no man can shut. Remove obstacles that have blocked their path for decades. Heal bodies that have carried pain too long. Restore relationships that seem beyond repair. Provide financially for those who have given their last dollar in faith. Give them dreams that direct their steps and visions that clarify their calling. Father, as the 19th of August, 20th and 21st approach, let them feel the sound building in their spirits. Let them hear the chains breaking. Let them sense the scrolls opening. And when that moment comes when heaven touches earth in their personal situations, give them the courage to respond with boldness, knowing that what you have started, you will surely finish. Surround them with people who recognize their anointing. Connect them with opportunities that seem too good to be true, but are simply you being God. Protect their minds from doubt, their hearts from fear, and their spirits from discouragement. Most of all, Lord, let them never forget that they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond understanding, and destined for purposes greater than they can imagine. In the mighty name of Jesus, who sits at your right hand interceding for us all, I seal this prayer. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us what God spoke to your heart today. Share what you're believing Him for in these coming days. Ask us to pray for specific areas of your life, because this community will surround you with intercession. Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if this message has set something on fire in your spirit, please share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. There's a family member, a friend, a neighbor who's been feeling that same stirring, wondering if God still sees them. Be the vessel that carries this hope to them. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Your faithfulness to watch until the very end tells me everything I need to know about your character and your calling. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. This isn't just content, this is a movement of awakening. Every week, we're diving deeper into the mysteries of your divine purpose, and I don't want you to miss a single word God has for your life. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are. You are chosen, you are loved, you are never, ever alone. And the 19th of August, 20th and 21st, are about to prove that God's timing is always perfect, His promises are always true, and His plans for you are always good. The sound is building, chosen one. And when it breaks through, the whole world will know that your God is still in the miracle business. Go in peace, go in power, go in the unshakable confidence that your finest hour is just 3 days away.